Welcome to Carolina Sculpture Studio. My name's Clint Button, and I'm a granite sculptor. Welcome to video number 36 of the Virtual Stone Carving Apprenticeship. All right, decided that I was going to remove some of the blocking and rework it, so I took the blocking that was in there, this 2x4 behind her leg. I took this one out, and I think I'm going to take that one out, but first I'm going to put this together and not make too much of the composition loose. I think this one will come out without a lot of trouble. Even if I have to cut a notch right here, it should lift right out. But I'm going to go back in with just a bunch of odd scraps of 2x just to block it up and save some clay. I'm going to look at what fits, what doesn't, and just load it up, because this is invariably lighter than the clay. And some of it I can use the same pieces right back in where the 2x4 was, and be able to go right back in and fill it right up and have it work really well. So let's see if we can make this work. And I may have to trim a little bit of it off on the bandsaw, but I think this will work really well. I was able to take a few pieces of ripped 2x4, so you know, theoretically 2x2, 1.5 square, and put some sections in to block this up, and that'll take me back almost exactly to the background, so that'll be good, and I can let her drapery flow, I can get the pull on her foot, everything should work really well. So I'll put this all together, and then we'll work on this other side, probably take this leg out, this piece of 2x out, and do the same thing, even if I have to take a piece of 2x and rip it to get a few more pieces of it. I don't know how much I've got, but works really well. And because it's screwed from the back, it's very easy to service it, even during the project like this. If this had all been screwed from the front, I would have had to wreck all of this, cut it off, and put it back on. And it just doesn't, it's just the wrong way to do it. So this worked out really well. Back to work. I pulled everything out behind here, and then went back in with some basically 2x4s that were split in half, so they're, you know, about this square, 1.5 square, and that was allowed me to do more detail on her leg. This ankle is still, let's see if I can get back. This ankle is still right at the top. We're going to have drapery covering that, so that's not a big deal. And as you're working, it doesn't matter if you're working on stone or clay. I'm going to tell you something my sculptor told me. He says, you know what, if it doesn't look right, you know what that means? It doesn't look right because it's not right, and you need to fix it. And it's a lot easier to learn how to fix things in clay than it is in stone, because in stone, you've only got one shot. But, you know, when something doesn't look right, that means it's not right. And you got to step back. You got to understand what's making it look wrong, because sometimes, just say for instance, this didn't look right, this detail right here, and I think it looks fine, but just say this detail doesn't look right. I have to understand if that means that this is wrong, or if some other aspect near it is wrong, and that's causing visual noise that I don't understand, that's distorting how I perceive this feature. And so just because something looks wrong doesn't mean that that is what's wrong. It may be something next to it, maybe where her knee is placed, it may be where this wing is figuring up to be. It may be that this knee and this knee need to be closer together. You've got to understand what's wrong before you just change it. And that's one of the reasons that I really think people need to do more clay before they do their stone, is that it allows you the chance to rehearse the shape, rehearse the composition, rehearse the form, and you'll go through it and you'll understand things that aren't right. You'll understand how they were addressed and how they were resolved. And then when you're working through it in the stone, when you see a certain shape develop, you may better understand it because you may have already resolved that and fixed it in the first place when you're working on your composition. So I did the same thing over here. I took this 2x out. I went back with some split 2x pieces you know, that are like this, different lengths, different pieces, and was able to go back in, use the same holes, add a couple more to screw in, and then what I'll end up doing is I'll put drapery from here that will be pendant, and it'll drop back in, but that will fill this. I'll also have drapery come down here and this wingtip come out to fill out to this, to potentially add another up to an inch or so of stone here, so that this 6-inch dimension on the stone isn't terribly fragile, because as soon as you get into here, it'll already have more stone adding up on it. And you could also put an accessory here of some type to fill it, but I don't know that I'll need to. I'm going to try to make this wing pretty strong and have these have a large 1 or 2 feathers come down and end here, that I don't have to, I can go behind them a little bit, but I can leave them out so that there'll be a limited amount of stone exposed here that's just 6 inches thick. And remember, this is not a statue, this is a die stock, and so the grain's going to be going front to back like a regular die. So this should still have pretty strong characteristics in terms of the way the stone is, but we want to limit how long this is so that it'll be as strong as possible. So, but pretty happy, it's coming out well. I'm going to go through and work on tuning this up. Still got to tinker a little bit with this arm to make sure this arm is comfortable. Had the model come down and hold an arm on this to see how her arm looked. Want to make sure it looks nice and relaxed and not stressed at all. And I can put some arch into the rows, into the stem as I do it. And the only way I can do that here is either to build it up thick or put wire in it. So we'll play with that. But it's most of the anatomical work is pretty well put together. So I'll start tuning her head up a little bit, and then we got to start working on the wings, because I want to do as much as I can behind the figure before I do the finish work of the drapery and stuff on top, because I don't want to have to reach around it, and I'd rather have the drapery finish on top of the wings, because that's going to make sense. So I need to go through and develop the rest of the wings that I want, come right out to the edge here, and one of the cool things, because we're carving this the way we are, is that I can actually bring the wing up above this, because this is going to be solid stone out here, so I can have the feathers come out past that background and make them look so big that they don't even fit, and really have some fun, instead of having this flat and then have the wings all forced to be behind that. That's not the case. I can make the wing stand forward and stand proud and cup her a little bit more, and it'll be a lot more dramatic. So we'll work on the wings for the most part now. I'll do just a little bit more on the figure, and it's time to start working on the wings, and once they're done, we'll do drapery work. So good stuff. But it's end of the day today, pretty much wrapped up, and we'll be back in the morning. Like I said, if something isn't right, fix it. Didn't like where her face was. I think it needs to go back a little bit, keep her forehead tall, because I had her forehead shaped wrong. So I just cut some off. But not going to get real hung up on it, because it's not a priority. Not now. What is happening right now is you're going to find things work for you in certain ways, things that you really like, and that one of those things for me is lighting. Now, all of this work, but especially bas-relief, because granite is monochromatic, it's got one color, and you generally want granite to be very homogeneous to carve with, very consistent in grain, very consistent, so that it's got I don't want to say boring, but you don't want the stone to be fancy. You want the stone to be basic, so that your shape and your form can dominate the composition, the work. And if you and so that turns it into a project that's very heavily dependent upon value. and value are different shades or different levels of the same color. And the value in this case is that you generally only have shadow, light and dark, of that same color in order to produce the desired effect. And with a nice neutral granite, especially a blue granite or a gray granite, you have really awesome potential in terms of value, because it looks like a natural, lifelike, it can look like a natural, lifelike object in low light, because at low light you don't see color as well. And so it looks more like you know, something at the end of the day or the beginning of the day, or even at night when there's not really, you don't notice the color as much. And so I like to work, like right now it's raining and it's fully overcast. Anytime that it's completely overcast and the light is really neutral, there's no harsh light at all, it will help you understand your shape in terms of where it creates shadow and where it doesn't. When your light is really strong, it can overwhelm subtle amounts of value because the light washes them. And when we go out in the cemetery, it is going to be very, very strong light. There's not going to be, you know, it's generally going to be, unless it's under a tree or something, it's generally going to be really, really, really hot light. And you need to do your stonework so that it's suitable for that kind of a location. But it's also going to be important that all of your detail isn't harsh and sharp. When a lot of times bronze work is textured, they texture it specifically in an exaggerated way after they model it. Instead of leaving all the modeling marks, people now make it with whatever they use. Then they go back with a tool and scrape it all up to put texture on it. You know, that's what they do. I mean, and you can do that to create roughness. They also will apply a patina to specific areas to make it dark or light, to fake the shadow, because they want this to be dark, so they darken it more. So it's always dark, so it doesn't matter what the light is. Well, with granite, we don't have that option. We have to create the form or the shape that produces that shadow. And so working in different light conditions, that's why I don't have big skylights in my ceiling like you see people imagine traditional sculpture studios have. Lots and lots and lots of natural light just everywhere. I want to be able to control my light. If I turn the light on, a lamp, I've got a specific light pattern that I can dictate as to where the light is and how it works. Or I can work with no light, which works better for the video camera because the camera's always adjusting. And then when it's neutral like this, I don't have any bounce off the floor that's detrimental to my shadows, and you'll understand your shape so much better. So, but right now I'm just trying to model this and build this wing up. Came back in the morning to look at it and see, just like I was looking at pictures, I didn't like her face. Her head's in the wrong place. It needs to go back because this shape needs to be different. But this is still the high point of the carving. So, going to do that. I also have been standing her up to try to make sure that she looks believable. I don't want it to look like she's losing her balance. I want it to look like she's standing. And so I'm trying to balance that out with motion versus static. But we'll get this built up and then we'll get these wings modeled. But we got to have some volume on here first in order to make these wings really look great. Probably come down to about right here with the actual wing structure, and then the larger feathers will go from this area down. We'll put three big feathers here and make this pretty dramatic. And then this is another thing I wanted to point out, and whether we can see it in this video or not, I'll have to move the camera, but I'll show you. Repetition strengthens the design. By having this wing flare, having this leg flare, having this leg tip, you've got a continuity of pair, and we're going to have drapery down in here that's going to reinforce this movement, because it's going to be obvious, because you're going to have a curve and a roughly parallel curve structure and a roughly parallel curve structure and another roughly parallel curve structure. And then her foot points this in the other direction, so this will transition to having curves over here. So the dividing line will be right here at her foot, which is approximately at the center line of the composition. So we're going to have parallels flaring this way, and then this leg goes down, and at the ankle it transitions where the foot's pointed this way. This is going to give us a break, which is going to be on the center, and it's going to go to carry the drapery that way. And it should look pretty good. I'll get pictures of it closer up, but it's hard to get video and point it out and everything working alone. But that's one of the design compositions that we've got. And this turn here, where this is turned, is echoed in this turn of her arm. So we've got all these lines, and then we've got these shapes that balance out with each other. And then we've got this divider across the center that doesn't really line up with anything except the axis of her head. So we've got a lot of detail in here with repetition to strengthen designs and strengthen features. And those are part of when I talked about protocol and genre specific stuff, this will help produce the sway and the movement that we're wanting to see. I also flipped her hand over. I'm going to try turning her hand. I'm concerned more about the 8 inches here to carve a rose than I am the position of her hand. I just want her hand to look natural. So we'll play with the hand more later on. Right now it's just wedging up clay. You can see we've got the axis of her head and the axis of this arm are roughly parallel. We've got her hair turns, and that's going to mimic an echo in her arm. This side here, the wing will come down and flare. And there'll be drapery in the void between the wing and her foot. And then her foot and her leg flare the same direction. This leg has that flare, and then we have the transition right at the center where this foot turns, and this drapery will pull over to this side and pull out onto the plinth down at the bottom here. So we have this line transitioning to mimic the foot, and then this figure is echoed right here in the arm. So we've got a lot of reinforcement through this design, and it's good to understand those things as you develop it, because it makes sense and none of it looks contrived. It all matches naturally, so we try to make her look really elegant. Got some volume on the wing, added, did a little bit, put her face back together, moved the head back just a little bit. And it's important with the wing that it isn't just designed in 2 dimensions, but that it's also got some volume to it. And we'll try to, I'll bring it out here, some over the shoulder. I've got to scale it so that both of them are similar. I don't want one up against her head, but I want to get this out what I can. And this is another repetition where this will curve to match the curve of her hair and the profile of her face. But we'll try to have some curve here so that this curves all the way down and then out at the bottom. Try to make it flow pretty well. So, and I did smooth her up a little bit just by rolling a wedging tool on there, just to roll it like a rolling pin, just to smooth it up. I want to sweep it to smooth it. That's not what I want. And this actually will produce a lot more interesting surface. And then we'll work on developing. I've started one fold here on the back that will come pendant off her hip and go down, and then it will come out here, and hopefully this should, between these two, we'll have some strength, because this won't be all undercut, I'll undercut the edge and leave the back solid. That'll strengthen this corner a lot for while it's being handled. and this will add some volume as well, but her heel will be pulling back, so it'll pull drapery across, and so that will help create some activity there. And then I've got to start putting all the drapery on. But I did turn her hand over. I think that's probably going to work pretty well. We'll play with the rows and see what we can do. But and I got to really, I'll do more with her head and face and everything as we go along. But right now the 2x is right here. It's right on the, there's nothing to go back, so that'll be a little thick. But looking pretty good. Now start on, work on that other wing. Make that come together. It's always difficult to understand where I ought to stop, where I ought to video, where I ought to show, what I don't need to show. I don't want to bore you. And most of this, as far as developing the drapery, is just a matter of adding clay and trying to make it make sense. What I'll point out here is that I'm trying to make, if you'll see, this is a good example. I swept this with my finger. This is filled. This is still the surface of the leg that I modeled, just like this. And so by doing this, you can keep the drapery fairly thin. There's going to be tension as her knee pulls this forward, and then it stretches back from her heel. And then this is all going to be pendant here. This will all drop and fold out, as we talked about before. I want to try to make her drapery thin. I want to make it delicate. Like I said, there's not a stuffed angel somewhere. There's no angel's clothes anywhere that we can study. So you can make it light. You can make it thin, very transparent thin. Some of the very transparent, one of the angels that's really impressive is the Monteverde angel, and she's almost got a haughty kind of, very sexually. She's got, you know, her abdomen protrudes a little bit. She's got some thrust there, and so I'm trying to capture some of that. I haven't done much more with the wings yet. I did a little bit with her head. I've got that pretty well justified back where it needs to be, but like I said, that's holding a place. We'll have to model the hands. We'll talk more about hands as I do them. The challenge with hands is that if you look at the hands on a lot of angels, they look like a guy's hand. And that's because the guy that's carving them, the man that's carving them, looks at his hands and carves hands. And so you got to learn to not do that unless you've got very pretty hands that look like they look good on an angel. So, but this is coming. I just wanted to stop real quick and show you how the clay is being built up. There isn't, I'm sure there's people that'll tell you how you ought to do it and whatever. You got to practice. You got to get in there and do it. Study some pictures, look at different things. I don't know if this drapery is going to be what I settle on. It's going to have to be very pendant and look like it's natural. But I really want it to show, just like it shows her thigh, like it shows her abdomen. I want it to show her anatomy, so that that's what is captured more so than specific folds that obscure everything. So we'll keep working on this and come back in a little bit. It's about time to wind this video down. Modeling in clay, like I'm doing here, will really help you understand the transition of shape and the transition of form and volume. Right now, I cut her head off, and I got a flat spot right here. That's flush with the surface of the stone. So if I've got her head, perfect. That right there, just makeup in the hair, a couple lines, and that'll be her. The forward portion of her head is flush with the face of the stone. As you model details, like I've done more on the face, I'm going to try to put up a flip right here of something that everybody needs to see pretty early on in their stage in terms of modeling and all that. Most people will see, they'll look right or they'll look left depending on what their preference is. And as you look to the, if you look to the left, you're seeing the right side of her face. Something that's a real revelation, you'll do one side of the face and then you'll match the other side of it. And so that's why when some of the tutorials show trying to do both sides simultaneously, because it's hard to make one look better, or make them both look even. And anything that's symmetrical, or bilateral, you tend to have problems with that. Michelangelo's Pietà is fantastic. If you look at Mary, she's really pretty. If you do a mirror image, and I'll try to put this on the screen, picture of her face. Okay, now reverse that image. And she ain't quite so pretty. Looks like she's been out drinking or had a stroke or whatever. One side tends to have volume, one side tends to be narrow. And you'll find that that may be how you model things. So it's important to take your time to look at it from different perspectives, not just from here. Look from here. Look from down here and look up. Take a picture of it and flip it on the phone or your computer, and you'll see what's crooked, because a lot of times the visual noise you get in a symmetrical design, it may not be a problem with the volume around her eye or her mouth. Her nose may be skewed, or there may be one nostril that's fatter than the other, or one side of the face may be low and one side may be high, because you've modeled it. And even though the plane, if you cut her head in half, there's a plane like this, these planes aren't even. They may be tipped like this or tipped like this. And so instead of having 90 degrees, you've got them skewed. And that can really confound you until you learn how to address it. And so modeling the clay is a really good way to practice your form before you do it in stone. Because and one thing that's kind of interesting is as you carve, you'll work through, depending on how you compose your carving and how you execute your carving, it's very common to work through a variety of ethnicity details before you arrive at your final design, because you may have the eyes may be webbed differently. The corners of as you work it out, if she's supposed to be Caucasian, the corners of her eyes, the webbing, as they're down, it'll make her look more Asian. If her nose is heavy, she may look, or cut in a different profile, she may look like a different ethnicity. She may look like she's black, like she's Native American, as the volume or the shape of the face changes. And so doing it in clay, it's easy to fix those things and understand where you're going. And also understand that, if you did this in the beginning and you cut away that much stone to fix it, you might have made a mistake. You should have left some stone there. So get some clay, practice your modeling. And I'm going to keep working on her. I've built this arm up. Now that I've got this established and her pretty well together and started the drapery, I want to make sure she's got all the volume that I can possibly use in this stone to make her look like she's very voluminous. I hate to use the same word again. But also not to waste stone, because I've got volume here. And the more stone I use to do the figure, the less I have to take off, the better the paycheck could be. Because if I can leave a ½ inch of stone somewhere instead of carving it off, that's ½ inch of stone I have to take off. So, it's going to start raining again. You won't be able to hear me. My name's Clint Button here at Carolina Sculptor Studio with the Virtual Stone Carving Apprenticeship. Thanks for coming in.